There's a great scene in the book where it's like you're following this guy. He works at maybe it's the corporation where I can't remember, but they make synthetic animals. And some woman calls in and she's like, "Oh, like my husband's cat died, and he loved this cat so much. Like, can you make a replacement really fast?" And they're like, "Yeah, we can." And she's like, "Well, can you make it real?" And they're like, "Well, the problem is like for anyone who's an onlooker, yeah, they won't know the difference. But because this was his cat, it's way too personal. So he will be able to tell the difference because like he knew the cat in its original form. So if to him, he will absolutely notice." And they're like, "Do you still want it?" And she's like, yeah, I'll still take it. And then after he hangs up, he's just like, people these days, like, they will always, rather than just accept the loss and like grieve and move on, they will go for the replacement, even though they know that the replacement is fake.
All right, hello, welcome to the HolmFront. I am Tyler, your host, and to my right, as always, is Mitch, my overly artistic friend. Mitch, looking like you're ready to party.
Yeah.
All right, so we just got done watching a movie. I also read the book, so we're going to go over a little bit of that, but what did we just watch?
We watched Blade Runner, and the way you said that, it made it seem like I had not read the book, which is not true. I have, in fact, read the book.
You read it a long time before I did. I just forced myself through it for this episode, actually.
Yeah. So, I made it through about, well, from the sound of things we were talking beforehand, probably close to half, but
about maybe a little bit more. Yeah. So the
can't believe I was that far along. So little had happened.
Well done. Okay, so Blade Runner. Do you want to give the synopsis, or should I?
You should. You're better at that than I am.
Oh, thanks. Okay, so we wrote it down. I'm just gonna read it. It sounds robotic, but whatever. I guess that's apropos, right? Blade Runner is an 80s noir sci-fi by Ridley Scott based on a novel about a bounty hunter that hunts down androids known as replicants.
It's very cool.
It's a really cool idea, for sure. Which, also, the book is a really cool idea.
Yeah.
Tough application, but it's a good idea. So let's just jump into it with that.
Yeah.
Try and keep an open mind. And come to the same conclusion as we did at the end of the movie. All right, so let's do some fun facts real quick. I just want to start with something that's kind of engaging. And
okay.
Things that we kind of liked. We had a disagreement earlier. I just, like I said, I just read this book and I was like, does the term Blade Runner actually show up in the book? Because I don't think it does.
Yeah, the book is called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep?
Right. Very close to the movie title, Blade Runner.
Almost identical, phrase for phrase. I don't know why they bothered to change anything.
I don't know. It's just, just keep it. So yeah, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? And then the movie obviously is Blade Runner. So I was like, is the Blade Runner concept or title in the book? And I don't think that it is.
I think it is.
You...
Because at very least says bounty
I checked
hunter.
with AI, so
yeah,
it would know.
You checked with AI, and then it gave you one answer, and then you checked again, and it gave you a completely different answer. That just goes to show how accurate AI is. Just like grabs whatever until it seems to make sense.
Just probably,
in isolation.
maybe. I don't know. But likely it was. It also might not have been. Who knows? I don't. So I don't think that it did. I was racking my brain, and then I did a couple of searches, and I was like, I don't think the Blade Runner term is actually in the novel. So we'll just leave our disagreement there because you think it is.
Yeah, and
I read it more recently, and so
that's fair. But also, it didn't seem like you were paying close attention because if you were, you would have caught the fact that they called him a Blade Runner. To be fair, I think
he's a bounty hunter. He calls himself a bounty hunter in the book. But
they do say bounty hunter, and I wonder if I'm just conflating with that.
You are. I'm right.
But either way, I feel like, if they do mention Blade Runner, it's like he just says it one time. But here's the thing, it really should have just been called Blade Runner. If you had written the novel Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep and you handed it to me, and I read it and you said, what did you think? What I would tell you is I would say, change the title to Blade Runner because that's way cooler. Actually, if it's not in the book, I wouldn't have said that because I wouldn't have known about that
Right,
title. I would have just said.
how'd you get that from
But
there?
the thing is,
okay.
it is in the book, so I definitely would say it.
It's not in the book.
And then I would say you should change half of the story and just
And
focus.
also the title.
And also the title. But I said that first because I feel a softer blow than having to rewrite half your novel.
That's fair. But then you would just come with a finisher with change half your novel.
Change half the novel, just got all this crap, and then just make it about the Blade Runner thing because that's cool and everything else was not.
Fair. Okay.
I don't like that book very much, if you can tell.
you gotta bury the lead a little bit. All right, so we're gonna jump into the second key fact that you actually mentioned while we were watching that, and that I noticed it was like noir, but like sci-fi, almost a little bit dystopian. Kind of has like some similar leanings that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, you were saying it basically invented cyberpunk, this like noir.
It did.
Sci-fi.
The film did.
Right.
So we're talking about the book and the film today.
Yeah, right.
Merging. But the film really did establish a precedent for cyberpunk. It sort of established that whole genre. I actually have a funny story with this, if you'll permit me, because it is quite hilarious.
If you have to.
I took a film class in community college days, and throughout the course, I'm thinking, oh, film is so cool. It's awesome. Let's learn about it. Now I could study something really interesting. So I'm in that class. I'm all excited. We start watching some movies. And, we're going through time. He's kind of like picks a couple movies from each era, and then we move forward in time. So I'm like, well, that makes sense. And after at some point, I start to say to myself, geez, we're watching a heck of a lot of film noirs. I had no idea film noirs were such an important part of filmmaking. And then we get to the end of the course, it's 16 weeks or whatever. So it's week 14 or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, finally, Blade Runner. I get to watch a sci-fi movie, something different for a change. So I'm all excited. And then about halfway through Blade Runner, I go, this is an effing film noir.
Had me fooled.
I thought we were doing something different.
Incorrect.
So really, it was just a film noir class, and my instructor, that's all, I think that's all he liked. He just wanted to talk about film noir movies.
And you got to this one. But was he the one that shared that information, that this kind of invented the cyberpunk?
No.
Okay.
I had to figure that out myself.
Okay. Personal research. Okay.
Yeah, because I didn't learn anything in that class. No offense to the teacher, but he was kind of like this movie. He was very slow. He didn't immediately respond when you asked him a question. The class felt like it was 8 hours longer than it actually was. So it's a lot like this movie now that I think about it. Just very slow, very drawn out, where you're just kind of like a test of patience the whole way.
Inspiration. He's like,
it must have been.
He watched it and he was like, that's how I want to teach. That's it.
See, I don't even remember if other film noirs are that slow. I don't feel like they're typically this slow, but Blade Runner is a really, really sluggish movie. It just
there's a difference though that I think between slow and sluggish. Like slow can be methodical, right? Because you might come to some conclusion that made it worth the tempo. This one, though, just kind of feels like just kind of dragging you behind it. And it's like, oh my God, do something, please. Anything at all. And then it does something. And you were even saying the last time that we'd mentioned this movie, I forgot when, in a previous episode, you were like, yeah, something happened. And I didn't realize that it happened for about 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's like somebody was
delayed
murdered.
Reaction.
And then I was like, and then I reacted so much later. I was like, oh my God, somebody was murdered.
Oh,
but I forgot. It didn't like leave an impression because it's depicted in the same way that every scene in this movie is depicted, where it just has this like elongation to it.
Gotcha.
And there's like crossfades, and then it's like we're still in the same scene, but crossfade over here and over there, and you're just like, what are we doing? And then there's a lot of scenes of people just kind of standing around and drinking.
There's
or
a
eating.
lot. And there's a lot of the times where it doesn't make a lot of sense. But okay, so let's keep going.
Yeah, so like my main point with that though is that like I'm gonna rail on it because there's problems with this movie that I just don't think get talked about enough. But like I appreciate the intention of this movie. It does feel like a very experimental film and something that kind of pushes the boundary to do something new. So for that reason, it has my respect. It's just I have a tough time connecting with it because it's just so just so like laborious. It feels like everything is just so full of effort to get through.
Where's the end? Okay, so number 3. And like I said, I read this book before I watched the movie. I've never seen Blade Runner before today, actually.
Well, you have a story with regards to watching Blade Runner.
We'll get to that in a second. Okay, but so I was noticing, because like this is the difficult part of when a film is based off a book, is there's always the argument, right, of which one do you do first?
Mm-hmm.
Seems that the common consensus is that you read the book first, but that's not always true. This one, I think, I don't know if it hindered or helped it, but I was constantly looking at the movie through the lens of the book, because I was like, well, that's different, or that person do that, or she doesn't say that there, and
Yeah.
so I don't know if it would have been better to watch the movie first and then do it. So that's probably the direction I go with this particular.
It would have been.
Instance.
You should have done that. Why couldn't you have done that?
That's fair. To be fair, you wanted to watch this movie with me, and so
I did, because I had only ever seen it one other time,
right,
in that class. It was
So
a long time ago.
They made some really big changes from the book and the film. I think there's similar themes, but overall, I think it changed the thesis of the story.
For the better, one might say.
Sure.
So you don't feel like it's for the better, though, is what I'm sensing. You feel like the book was actually onto something, and the movie screwed it up. Is that right?
We'll get into that. Let's get into that after we do this last one.
All right.
So did we like it? Let's just finish there.
No.
Where would you put it on a star rating?
Well, if I was going to rate it, I would give it like 4 stars, even though I didn't really like it. But I just feel like at an objective level.
Just for its artistic purity, essentially?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because there's a lot of artistic things in it, like the production design, the cinematography, and like just the focus of what Ridley Scott chooses to show you, and like how much of it is very compelling. Like, there's a really cool shot. I don't know why this one stuck with me, but it's a shot of Rachel. She's in Deckard's apartment and she's playing the piano, and then she like reaches up and like undoes her hair, and so then her hair comes down. But like she's framed like all the way on one side, and then everything behind her is just all black. So it's like her hair just bleeds into the nothingness abyss behind. And I was just looking at that going, this is like such an intentional shot. Like it just feels like there's so much that he's thinking through in just a simple image like this. And he's doing that throughout the whole movie. And so even if I don't connect with it or really understand it much, it's kind of like it doesn't mean that it doesn't have a right to exist, or that it doesn't do something good for the health of film, as it were, right?
Sure.
So I feel like it's a movie that's worth seeing, as arduous as it is to get through. I don't regret watching it, but it's also like a movie I'd never want to watch again. It's like I've seen it once and I'm like, yeah, I'm satisfied.
Got it.
You know what I mean?
Out of my system.
Yeah, kind of thing.
I've done my due diligence to Mr. Scott.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you? What do you rate this movie? Why don't you tell me about your story now? Can I get that?
Sure. Okay, so I have a weird relationship with this movie, because I'm a big fan of Denis Villeneuve, and so I initially saw Arrival, and that's what locked me in, and then he made Blade Runner 2049, and I was like, man, this is an incredible movie. I was like, I know that Ridley Scott made one in the 80s, so if this is this good, like that one has to be at least almost as good, right? Like it's close, probably. And so I have this is embarrassing. I have tried to watch this movie 5 times. And I have fallen asleep every single time. But I don't feel like that's a fair representation of my feelings towards the movie, because I'm borderline narcoleptic.
Yeah.
So I don't I don't think that's a representation of like how good it is.
How many other movies have you fallen asleep 5 times to?
That's not important to this point, okay?
I rest my case.
It's not important. Okay, so
but he did make it. I can verify. I was there. This was the other reason why I wanted to be there to watch it, is to make sure that you had seen it. And
you're like standing over with me, a hammer or something, like, do it.
Like a flashlight in your eyes.
Like, you will watch this and you will like it. Okay, so I on a artistically, I would probably agree with you. I would probably give this about a 4.
Yeah.
Personally, it would probably be between like a 2 and a 3. Because I agree, it's not something I'll probably ever revisit.
Two's good.
Two's
enough.
solid. It is visually, it is stunning. It is incredible looking.
Yeah.
And I do like a lot of the themes that it is playing with, but I also think it's dealing with quite a few of them, and it's also got a lot of the 80s cheese that's trying to bleed over, and so it kind of hurts it in that.
You can definitely feel the cheese for sure.
Some like the hairdos and stuff are like, okay, man,
gosh.
just you should have not allowed this in this film. But I do like the like cyberpunk aesthetic, the noir sci-fi.
Yeah, it's cool.
I like him trying to figure it out. Well, okay, so then why don't we jump into like a couple of the differences between the book and the film?
Okay.
The main one is the motivation, and I thought that this was where I was trying to figure out why. And we were having a discussion after the film ended where we're trying to figure out like how to script the video and stuff, and I was like, probably way overthinking a lot of the themes in this film. But initially, I wanted to connect this with a couple of other films that Ridley's done, because Ridley has this obsession, kind of like Christopher Nolan when it comes to time.
Yeah.
But anytime you see a Nolan film, you're like, oh, is the gimmick here time? I bet you it is. Ridley Scott has this obsession with meeting one's creator, what that means philosophically.
Yeah, he does.
And that bleeds through with the Alien films, specifically the later ones, The Covenant and Prometheus. But this one, and Philip K. Dick does have it in the book, but so there's a series of androids, they're called replicants, and they're mostly on Mars. So there's a series of them that come to Earth. They like smuggle themselves in, and Deckard, the main character, Rick Deckard, who's played by Harrison Ford, he has to go and hunt down the replicants that get here. And so the book is basically him like...
Yeah, because they're supposed to just be slave labor, basically.
Right. So he's kind of doing all this detective work to find all these replicants and taking them down. And they're what's called the Nexus 6. So what he does is he has a machine that can test emotional responses, and he can determine whether someone is a replicant or a human. And he doesn't do a whole lot of explaining as to like how similar androids are to humans. Like you have Ridley Scott doing androids in Alien, where they like bleed white. You can tell like they're like run through with like wires and cables and tubes and things. These ones in this universe are almost identical to humans. They have blood and they have vessels, and like there's no like control panel or batteries, or they're not like recharging like they do in Creator or whatever. Like these are as close to humans as you can possibly get, and so it's very hard to tell except for in emotional responses. So what he does is he asks a series of questions to he measures their empathic response or empathetic response. And so it's a dilation of the pupils and then the capillaries in the cheeks, so blushing and that kind of stuff. And so he'll say stuff like he has a briefcase and he'll say, yeah, it's made out of baby hide. And based on their response and how quick it is, he can tell if it's an actual human or not.
Yeah.
And so the series of questions go through. But the Nexus 6, the new model, are so difficult to distinguish between. And that's the premise of the book. So he goes in to test his testing method, which is the Voight-Kampff machine.
Yeah.
He goes in to test it at the Tyrell facilities, which is in the movie. And the guy's all nervous and he's not sure what to do with him being there. And so he says, yeah, you can test it on a bunch of our androids, but I want you to test it on a human first. So he sets Rachel down.
Yeah.
Tests Rachel, and he makes a mistake, or it makes a mistake. He thinks that she's human.
And this is in the novel.
This is in the novel. And it's recording, and so they get up, he finishes his thing, he closes his briefcase. He starts to walk off, and then he has a weird interaction with her that makes him double guess. It makes him question his result. He's like, I don't think this is right. So he's like, you know what? I'm going to ask one more question. Sits back down, puts the machine back up, asks her one more question, and then notices, oh, she's an android. She doesn't know. Oh, I'm sorry. She does know in the book that she's an android. In the movie, she doesn't know.
Yeah.
So they changed that. It was a fundamental portion of that. But they use it to manipulate Deckard in the book, because they don't want their product essentially to be viewed as this thing. They want it as close to humanity as possible. That's the point of what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they don't want someone out there that's able to prove that they're not.
I see.
And so they manipulate that. But in the movie, it's about the fact that she doesn't know, and that leads into further aspects of that narrative. But then they also have this dual narrative of this other android that's like wanting to find his creator and kill him. Shows like that is not in the androids in the book are just trying to hide away from Blade Runners.
Is that because when Philip K. Dick was writing it, he thought to himself, well, if he did that, there'd be some action in this book. And
yeah, can't have that.
I can't have any of that. That's too much.
It's too much.
Let's not go there. Let's go somewhere else.
The thing that is in the book that kind of bleeds over into the film is that so the book is called Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? So in the book, Deckard has an electric sheep. And he like keeps it and takes care of it, but he wants a real animal.
Yeah.
And that's a common theme
Not
throughout.
just a real animal, he wants a real sheep.
A real sheep.
Has to be a sheep.
Gets a goat later. Anyway, so the point of it is that this world has basically decayed to where there's not much real or living anymore. It's almost post-apocalyptic. And the film does represent that pretty well.
I would say it visually depicts
Yeah.
Philip K. Dick's universe as described in the novel very well.
And it's
I'd agree
so
with that.
blurred, you're never sure what's real and what's not. And that's
Right.
the premise of, or at least one of the conclusions of the novel and of the film to some extent, is at what point does it cease to matter?
Yeah.
Right? It emulates life so closely that at some point, like, it basically just is life, right?
Yeah.
And that's the question that it poses, and that's the question that Deckard is faced with at the end.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you have to watch the movie to figure it out, and we'll go into the spoilers later. But so I liked those themes, and for what it's worth, like, it was a subplot for the guy, the android meeting his creator, taking care of it the way he wanted it to, because it's not as like fleshed out as it later becomes in stuff like Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Yeah,
because those ones are a lot more about just focusing on that theme itself, and really like wants to expand on it as much as possible. It is interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's, again, the thing with the book and the movie is that they tend to meander with some of these plots. So it's really hard to like figure out what they're trying to say, or if they're trying to say something, or if they're just trying to pose a bunch of questions and let you kind of muddle through it all.
Yeah. Something that, I go along with that point of like how much it matters whether or not something is real. There's a great scene in the book where it's like you're following this guy. He works at, maybe it's the corporation where I can't remember, but they make, synthetic animals, and some woman calls in and she's like, oh, like my husband's cat died, and, he loved this cat so much, like, can you make a replacement really fast? And I'm like, yeah, we can. And she's like, well, can you make it real? And they're like, well, the problem is, like, for anyone who's an onlooker, yeah, they won't know the difference. But because this was his cat, it's way too personal. So he will be able to tell the difference because, like, he knew the cat in its original form. So if to him, he will absolutely notice. And they're like, do you still want it? And she's like, yeah, I'll still take it. And then after he hangs up, he's just like, people these days, like, they will always, rather than just accept the loss and like grieve and move on, they will go for the replacement, even though they know that the replacement is fake. And I thought that was a really interesting comment about like people's inability to just like move on from things, and that desire to just like reclaim and hold on to stuff, even though you have a fake inferior version in every sense of the word, because it's not genuine anymore. So I thought that part was really interesting. And like, there's a scene in the movie near it's the very end, but I don't feel like I'm spoiling anything because I mean, it's so old. Besides, if I spoil something, then it means you don't have to watch it and you probably
Spoilers.
Be spared. So at the end of the movie, there's a scene where Deckard goes home and Rachel's in his apartment, and the context that they've kind of been playing with building up into that scene is that, nobody lives forever. Like replicants, they have this expiration date. They only last for a couple of years and then they perish. They just shut down. That's what they're programmed to do as kind of a failsafe. But, it's like humans are the same way. I mean, they could die at any point too. It's technically not that different when you think about it in an abstract sense. Nobody's free of death. So, with that context, he goes home. Rachel's there on his bed under the covers, and he pulls the covers over so he can see her, and then they have a conversation. They talk for a moment, and then they leave. That's the end of the movie. The reason that stuck out to me is that the covers are like over her head, and the only context I can think of for which that would happen is if you're being placed in a body bag. So
or if you're on the slab or whatever, and they'll cover you with a sheet. Yeah,
at the morgue, exactly. So it was it was a subtle way of conveying how, because it was natural to the environment she was in. She was just in bed, with the covers over. But then, like, you think about it that way, and you're thinking about death and thinking about how much time you have with someone. It was just kind of interesting how they pulled on that as well. And then he is like, okay, well, I still want a connection with this person, even though they're not real, right? And so that was another, and so it's like a different scene, but I felt like it was capturing at least a portion of the sentiment of what the novel was getting at. So for that, I think that part worked. They just also did it while cutting out a lot of the other nonsensical BS in the book.
Fair. They do it in a scene just before that too, where, and I thought that was an interesting transitional moment of the film, is where she essentially goes rogue. So he meets her at the Tyrell Corporation. She finds out that she's an android and she didn't know beforehand.
Mhm.
And then someone in a throwaway line tells Deckard, yeah, she's run away from the corporation. She's gone rogue. She's like this Nexus 6 that's probably going to get hunted down because she doesn't belong on Earth like this.
Mm.
So she comes in to Deckard. She saves him first, and so he thinks that he owes her a favor, essentially. So he's like, yeah, I'm never going to hunt you down because you saved my life. So with that connection that's already been established there, they have a couple interactions, namely of which they sleep together. Then it's not shown in the movie or whatever, but obviously it happens. But after that happens, she is sitting at the piano, and like what you were saying, so she has this, like, I don't know, 50s, 60s hairdo that kind of goes with the noir and aesthetic, but no one else really has this hairdo. Everyone else kind of looks 80s or kind of neutral. She takes her hair out, and so she takes away the traditional, like, robotic look, something that's so poised and, like, well put together, lets her hair down and kind of joins in with the general aesthetic. And then you even made a comment. We were like, oh, she looks more human now. They, like, removed a bunch of the makeup and they just kind of allowed her to blend more into the environment. So they, like, removed the android aesthetic. So it was almost like her accepting humanity on some level.
Yeah.
In the theme. And so the other thing that happens, though, is that on the reverse side, Deckard starts to be more empathetic towards her kind because of his connection with her.
Mm-hmm.
And that happens at the end of the movie where instead of allowing her to be hunted down, he takes her with him and runs away.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of this, like, again, it's what is life? What is humanity? Where does it begin and end? And if we are created creations or whatever, if we're making something else, how much of that does it emulate us? How much does a creation emulate its creator to the point where it becomes similar or if not the same? So, like, a lot of those themes are interesting.
Yeah.
But it's and I know, like, we're making this movie seem like we like it, but, like, these are the themes
parts are good.
We're trying to extrapolate out that we actually enjoyed, because the rest of it it's so bloody slow to get any of that out. I was like, oh my, just do something.
Well, the two pieces, the book and the novel, have like a adjacent problem with each other. It's not the same problem, but it's problem adjacent.
Okay.
Because the movie, is just way too slow. That's its biggest issue. It just has this way of dragging you through every scene. The famous one is the scene where Harrison Ford's going through this photo and he's just like, enhance. I timed it before. I can't remember how long, because the first time I saw it, I was like, why is this scene so
Check
long?
your watch and it says,
it's not necessary.
Too long.
Yeah, way too long. He's just, like, going through and scanning everything. But he's, like, doing detective work. It's detailed. That's nice, I suppose. But it's like, at what point is that just become tedium on the viewer?
It's just too arduous after a certain point.
Yeah, or like when he hunts down one of the androids and he, like, shoots her. And then she's like, and, like, crashing through stuff and falling. It takes her like 5 minutes to collapse on the ground and die. It was just like, oh my gosh, like, we get it. We get what's happening.
You shot her down. It's done.
Yeah, it's over.
Killed her.
And that's like the major highlight scene of the whole movie is something happens. There was a chase and then someone got shot. Oh my God.
Hurrah.
And a movie with a bounty hunter.
Right.
And therein layers that problematic influence from the novel, because I picked up this novel being like, oh yeah, like, I love science fiction. I'm curious about Philip K. Dick. He's, this
very
great
highly
sci-fi.
influential.
sci-fi authors written all kinds of stuff, and I was like, what should I start with? And everybody was like, start with Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, because that one's, kind of easy and approachable, and it's different, a little bit different than the movie, but similar enough. I was like, all right, sounds good. So I go through that, and there was like 2 scenes that were really good, and then the rest of it, he's just complaining about how the fact that he doesn't have a real sheep, and that's what he wants so bad. So if I proposed to you, I said, hey, I got this cool story. It's about a bounty hunter, and he hunts down synthetic humans. So he interrogates them to find out whether or not they're a real human. And if they're not, he just guns them down on the spot. And it's in this post-apocalyptic world where, nobody has anything, and it's just grimy, and it's just like the corporate world is taken over, and he's just out there as this lone ranger, this lone gunman, just taking to the streets, doing detective work, hunting them down. That sounds cool. But if then I presented to you a guy who wanted to start a farm, very different kind of story. And it just pissed me off to no end, because it's like, I just don't care. And he seemed to think that it was so important that animals were such a focus. I don't want a synthetic animal. I want a real animal. And I was like, of all the things in life that could potentially be synthetic, an animal would make more sense. Not that I would be for that or want that, but some people have an iguana as a pet, and it's like, what kind of interaction are you going to have with an iguana that it's not authentic if it's synthetic? Who cares at that point? But
they probably would.
But the human interaction, I would think that that's of paramount importance. And he's just like, oh, well, when I get around to it in the book.
That is a little bit there. So there's 2 examples I can think of. One is the ongoing theme that Deckard comes face to face with the question of whether or not he's just as heartless as the androids that he claims are heartless because they're not human. Because, like you said, they fail the test and he just guns them down. And so they pose a question they pose a question like, oh, well, have you ever accidentally killed a human? And he says no. But it'd be kind of hard to tell because, he goes through and that test fails at one point.
Yeah.
She is an android and it fails to tell him that she is. And so could that have happened the other way?
Yeah.
He doesn't know.
Right.
And if they're trying to emulate life so closely, how would you be able to tell?
Yeah.
So there's that aspect of that. And then at the end, he has this change where he's like, yeah, maybe I am. And that was the other thing that kind of led me to believe that maybe he's also an android in the book. Because he's emotionless when he does this, but then he's having to go through this and being like, oh, maybe this is a bad thing because they look like humans, they talk like humans, they interact like humans, and I'm just gunning them down, telling myself that they're androids.
Yeah.
But you still get instinctual responses, right? And so I'm not getting those. So maybe I'm not real. But so there's that aspect, but there's also in the book he's labeled as a chicken head. It's just the term they give to idiots, I guess. So he failed an IQ test to be able to go to Mars to the new colony. And so he's left on Earth and he lives in these old dilapidated apartments because he's just kind of the outcast of society. So he has to kind of fend for himself, try and find odd jobs to support himself. And he just lives in this abandoned, broken down building. And he picks out the best furniture that he can find and kind of furnishes it, sits around and watches TV all day. He finds out that someone else moves in just below him or something. And he's just so excited that he gets to meet a friend. And that element is there where he actually is craving human attention and human interaction because he's like, oh, there's another person. There's only us 2 in this whole building.
Yeah.
We should spend all of our time together because there's no one else. So he's like, I will help you find all this furniture and stuff. The interesting thing about that is that it's kind of in this movie, but he's a bioengineer or something. So it makes no sense according to the logic of the book.
Yeah, he helps build the replicants,
androids,
and it's he's stone cold broke living on the streets.
Right.
Why? If you were the
he's
engineer,
the most successful ever, you should be. He's also best friends with with Mr. Tyrell, the guy that owns the corporation. He plays chess with him. It's how does this disparity exist? Anyway, whatever. So in the book, he actually just is an idiot. And the only reason that he interacts with this person is that it's one of the androids trying to hide. And she actually rejects him too. So that was the other side of that coin, is that he comes down to try and interact with her. She doesn't want to. She wants him to go away.
Yeah.
But then eventually she's like, maybe this is beneficial for me. So she allows him to stick around because it adds to her cover, essentially.
Yeah, yeah.
But then she has a conversation with the other androids later, and they're like, why don't you just live with him? Because it'll make you look more human. And she's like, I'm not living with a chicken head. He's an idiot. I don't want to be around him. That will do something to my image. And it's like, why do you care? You're trying to just live. You live in a dump. Like,
Well,
why is this the line? This stupid human. Like,
that makes sense to me, though, because that it's like not properly accounting for the severity of your situation.
Right.
Because she's not a real
an android.
person.
Right.
She's an android. Yeah.
But it's funny to me that classism even exists there.
Yeah.
She's the outcast, he's an outcast, but they're different outcasts and they can't be together.
So, yeah.
So, no.
I could never associate with his kind.
Exactly. But in the movie, he's just a means to an end. They're trying to find how to get to Tyrell, and he's someone that hangs out with Tyrell, so they go to him to get to Tyrell.
Yeah.
And then I think he just dies. They don't show him. He dies off screen, but the android, I think, just kills him or something.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he just goes and kills him but I don't know why he kills him.
Yeah. That doesn't make any sense.
It's like the evil android character goes and kills him.
But then they show that he's not actually evil in the end. So it didn't square with the character because it was something that they added in that didn't quite make a bunch of sense.
Well, let's talk about that scene.
Okay.
The scene that was, because I just complimented the movie a moment ago about, oh, look at the bed sheet. Look how great that symbolism was. Well, here's one that's not so great. And it's the final replicant that Deckard has to destroy. He ends up in a conflict with them, and they're kind of doing this cat and mouse game through this
very, very long conflict.
Very long scene. Very dramatic. And then they get chased outside, and there's that iconic scene where everybody remembers of the replicant. He's like in the rain, and he's just like on his knees, and he's like, ugh. It's like, memories are like tears in the rain. It's like they just get drowned out.
Which was
with
a good,
it, basically.
good line.
It is a great line, yeah. And then he just falls over and dies because, his expiration date came up. He reached that limit. He cannot prolong his life anymore. The thing about that is he's carrying a dove through like the latter half of the scene, and he's just like jumping across rooftops and stuff while holding this dove. And
it sounds so stupid. Go ahead. Okay.
Well, yeah, because like, where did he get the dove? Why would there be a dove readily available in the pouring down rain?
I think he finds it when they're climbing around the outside of the building, like it's tucked away somewhere, and he just picks it out.
I might have like blinked or something and missed it.
Yeah, idiot.
Which is weird. But I mean, I guess like that's the whole thing about this movie is it's sort of like it exhausts you, and then you're just like, you're no longer paying attention and absorbing it, and then something vaguely stimulating will happen, and you'll go, oh, and then you'll like refocus. So yeah, I probably just missed that one. But yeah, he grabs the dove. Either way, I think that's kind of it doesn't feel like a dove should be readily available, but apparently it is. Also, if it was, why would he grab it? That makes no sense. Anyways, he's malfunctioning, whatever. He grabs this dove, continues to fight Deckard while holding the dove, and then like he dies, and then he lets go of the dove. And so it's like the symbol is obvious because a dove is a representation of innocence, typically.
Or of spiritual things, yeah.
Yeah. And then also, too, like it flying away.
Trying to say that it has a spirit and has a soul that floats away.
Exactly. Okay. So, like, when he dies, he releases the dove, and then that's like his soul going out. But he obviously doesn't have a soul, but like maybe he does. And it's like what it's trying to do.
Have you ever seen Iron Giant?
No.
Oh, okay. The scene at the end, right? Souls don't die. It's like what this. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, so it was just kind of like, it's just really,
it was like, too overt.
Yeah, because it's like, he's like, well, I got to get this dove in there so I can communicate this. So how do I do that? And he's just like,
I know,
confounds some way for the dove to be there,
right?
As opposed to the more natural way that earlier scene, or the scene after it does, where it's just the bed sheet. Like, you may not even notice. Like, you wouldn't necessarily pick it up on that. Like, that's what it should be. And then someone could tell you, oh, that was a symbol for this or that. Like, because they look similar. See? And then you go, oh, yeah, you're right. In the context of the scene, I just thought it was a bed sheet. But now that I'm thinking of the theme of the movie, now it adds up to mean something more. But in the context of the scene is, well, he's got a dove. And you're just going, why does he have a dove? Well, because of my symbol. I have to justify the symbol somehow.
It has to be in there. So But so I was watching an interview with, I think it was the set director for this film,
Okay.
production designer, whatever.
I
they
love
call
how
it.
much research you had to do because you weren't sure if you could stay awake long enough to make it through
Well,
the movie.
I wanted to know more. I was like, I read the book and I was like, all right, I'm about to watch this movie. I've seen Blade Runner 2049. I understand a lot of the themes in it. I want to let's just see what else I can learn. Why not? So I watched a little bit, and there was a guy talking about when they go into the Tyrell Corporation, when Deckard goes there, there's these reflections on the wall that look like light coming off of water. So it's just kind of like wavering on the background.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's super cool visually.
Yeah.
But even the set director was like, there's no sources of, there's no like pools, there's no fountains, there's no sources of water in here. This doesn't logically make sense. And basically what he said was, Ridley was like, I don't care. I want that visually, so it's going to be in there. So like, I think he just comes at it like that. He's like, I don't care if it doesn't make sense that he's dragging around this dove with him. I want the symbology that's going to be there. Because that's more important to me than making that make sense.
Yeah.
And so it just exists. So like you get it, even though it's a little bit hand-fisted. And it's funny to me too, and we were talking about this a little bit with Cameron, is that you can show that you're capable of this nuance, but you don't always want to put in the work. Because then you talk about how the bench sheet scene happens, which is essentially the same symbology. Like it leads to the same conclusion. And it's talking about life and death.
Yeah.
But that one is so much more subtle, and it actually fits.
Yeah.
The theme of the scene.
It's nice. It just feels organic. You don't stop the question.
Yeah,
You're
organic,
just like,
that's the
oh,
word.
okay.
Yeah. This one, he's crawling around the outside of a building. He sees a dove. And he's like, I'll take that. It's like, well, why though? What are you going to do with it? It's like he knew he was going to die so he could release it and maybe make Deckard think a little bit harder. But I was like, Deckard is already considering this stuff. He just wants to live.
Yeah.
And the weird thing about it was that I called this one because like, he's looking at Deckard and Deckard's about to fall off the building. I was like, he's going to save him, isn't he? And he like grabs him and he puts it up. I was like, we just spent 20 minutes of you chasing him around looking like a madman just for you to be like, you know what? Never mind. You can stay.
Well, yeah, I think for him, he was like, he shows up at the apartment and he sees the other android has just been gunned down mercilessly. And he's like, oh man, there's a bounty hunter here. I better get him.
Also, she was not gunned down mercilessly. She instigated the fight. He tried to kill him, so it was...
He was walking around her apartment with a gun in his hand.
Whatever. It wasn't her apartment. She killed the guy that lived there. Or he did, I should say.
That's
she
true.
instigated his death. Yeah, they made these guys look all evil, and Deckard's supposed to feel... That was the thing about the book, is at least they were empathetic. Like, at least they were things that felt like they deserved to live.
Yeah.
And
yeah, there's like a cop who doesn't know that he's a replicant, and he finds out, and he like freaks him out.
Yeah, and like these ones are just trying to hide away. They're not going around killing random people. Like they just...
Well, they said they killed people at the beginning of the movie. They said they killed a bunch of people on the way over. I mean, we didn't see that, but...
The movie did, yes. But the book is them, they just sneak to Earth from Mars, and then they just hide out. So he's just trying to chase them down. So I'm just like, these... Like, what do they do? They're just because they're androids. So like, I understand the symbology there of the time or whatever, but still like...
What do you mean by that?
Well, it's probably some reference to racism or something. Like it's just what they are. So why?
And then
down for no reason?
The authority figure, the police cop guy, is just killing them without any kind of thought for their humanity or whatever.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I suppose so. I feel like they would have just cast a minority actor in the role for the lead guy then.
Well, this is a book I'm talking about. For the film itself, like it's just going off of the themes of the book and then trying to adapt it for a screenplay. But
I would assume it's more for the film rather than the book, because the book, I didn't get that impression. I mean, he was so concerned about finding a sheep.
I love how much you're stuck on that.
I wasn't the one stuck on it.
Get off the sheep, man!
I wasn't the one who thought that was a priority to be discussing. He was the one who was just page after page after page after page.
You got a
sheep? Let it go.
You guys got a sheep? You got an animal?
How much? Oh, it's so expensive to get a real sheep. Who cares?
Well, that was the point of the bounty hunting, was so that he could afford a sheep. Which I guess is another... Actually, I hadn't thought of this until just now. I wonder if that was his commentary, was that
people want superfluous things?
No, I'm trying to be actually deep here. No, he's like, he's hunting down something that looks like humans, that's created by humans, that acts like humans, that have human like empathy essentially,
Uh-huh.
in order to afford an animal. So he's putting them beneath animals in order to buy a real animal, because a real animal means more to him than a synthetic human being.
Yeah, I guess so. It didn't make for a very stimulating read, though.
Trying to get you to finish the novel.
Well,
It's not my favorite book for sure. It's something like I probably won't ever read it again, but I am trying to be generous here.
In the novel, I didn't feel like he was that prejudiced against them, but was he prejudiced? I thought he was just kind of like, I don't care. I just want my sheep really bad.
He does the whole it and that thing, and he doesn't like calling them he and she, and that's actually one of the things that gives one of the androids away. I forgot. I think it was talking about an animal or something, and it calls it. I forget what it was, but it uses a pronoun of it instead of like an actual something that would belong to human, he or she, whatever it was.
Oh, I see.
And so he's like, "Oh, that's not what a human would say," and that was what gave the police chief away. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to insert what maybe he was thinking about on from a telescopic lens before jumping into the annoying but overbearing details from the book.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that deep. I mean, that was the thing about.
I'm willing to I probably overthought that.
Not necessarily. I mean, I don't know. He's too just all over the map. I don't know, because again, a sheep too has very obvious symbolic connotations. Sheep are very dumb and they need a shepherd.
Yeah,
and they're super fragile, and so they're this vulnerable class of animal. And so, he wants something, I guess, that's like that, for lack of a better
essentially
term.
Defenseless. Then
and just something that he can just care for, right? It's you have to care for them. You have to give all of yourself to them to help them survive and whatever. So I'm assuming that's what he was going for, but it's kind of because if he's gonna say those things and call androids its and stuff, then you would think that the story would come back to comment on that at some point. But he's just not going to bother with it, and he's just going to get back to his sheep objective. And when you're reading it, you're just going, but aren't you a bounty hunter? Aren't you going to do some bounty hunting things? He's like, yeah, well, I killed that guy so I could get a sheep. And that's just such an awkward way of I cannot make that leap in logic. It makes no sense to me. What person would care so much about a sheep of all things? Even if it was, let's say, a dog or something. I can't. The movie made the right call and was screw the sheep. He doesn't have a sheep. He doesn't want a sheep. Matter. He doesn't care about a sheep. Sheep doesn't matter. Because it was so why? Oh, here's the other thing I was going to get to. So the androids, okay, so they make these androids that are so human. I mean, they're they straight up bleed like humans. They think like humans. They're humans in every sense of the word. And then at that point, I'm just all right, well, so then they're just human, right? But they're no, they're slaves. Well, why didn't you program something to make it so that they don't care that to be human? Because humans don't like being slaves. Make it so that they don't care. You have the technology. They're the ones building the robots.
This is fair. Yeah.
Make the replicants for a different thing. If you want to make a human representation who's just like humans, well, then that's a different project. But instead, they're well, we've made humans, so now we can get our slaves back. This is the worst kind of slave. Because it's not going to want to be a slave.
It's the labor without the hassle. I don't want to have to train him up.
Just make a machine and have the machine do what you want it to do.
Yeah, it's not going to argue with you about it or try and run or it's just going to obey.
It's this self-created problem.
Well, it's funny because they're stronger than humans. They're faster than humans.
That's another thing that doesn't make any sense.
And they have free thought. It's why? Why would you make it so that they can win?
Yeah, that's the other thing about it too. It's shouldn't they be able to detect that they are stronger? Why would you do any of this test? Just do a blood test or scan some bone marrow or something like that, or muscle mass.
It's
like
about the philosophical topics that it brings up, not about the minute details.
there would have to be
Let's
something.
not argue about who killed who.
There would have to be something to their DNA that would show up and register that allows them to be that strong.
No. They want it's about corporate greed. They want to make them as close to humans as possible without understanding the hubris of that decision.
This is like this is the epitome of why
You have a problem with Philippa Dick?
no, not me, why the larger like arts and academic community does not like science fiction. And why they really criticize it. It's because it's not well actually this is
like drowns out its own themes essentially.
Kind of, yeah. It's sort of like it doesn't, because it seems like, all right, well, I get it. The story, the purpose of the theme is what's most important. So screw all the rest.
Okay.
But then they spend all their time explaining the rules of this, and then go off on some tangent about sheep, and it's like, all right, you're losing me here. So, yeah, I don't know.
You don't understand the themes, man. You don't understand my vision, bro.
I think I got it pretty well. I think, who didn't get it? I think was Harrison Ford.
I don't think he cared.
He definitely didn't get it because
does not
he didn't
care.
I didn't notice it before, but this is probably his worst performance. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't add anything to this movie. He just has weird expressions for the first half.
He has a lot of weird facial expressions. A lot of them.
Yeah, it's like they don't match the scene.
No.
Like he shoots this one android, he just blows her away, and then he goes up and he's looking at her like, oh my gosh, she's dead.
This? You just shot her, dummy. Like, what?
Yeah, I was like, what are you doing?
You're the only one
Why that
responsible,
face?
man. Like, you chased her out, and then you shot her. like she actually died from that? Well, yeah.
What a mess. Oh.
Who's gonna clean this? Ridiculous.
Like, I thought he would come over and be like, or just like,
Sure.
or just pocket it and not even look at her. Don't even look at her. And just like address the cop, just get out your badge and just do all that stuff. But no, he's just like, oh man.
Yeah, you know what would have been more impactful, and this isn't quite like a HolmFront Fixes, I guess, but kind of along those lines, is if she had been a human that he thought was an android.
Well, yeah.
Guns her down, finds out later, and then has to come to terms with that. And then that would start him down his questioning of like, oh, well, how different are they? Because they both die the same way, they act the same way, they try and preserve their life the same way.
He probably had Harrison Ford doing that because he wanted to give the illusion that Harrison Ford could be a replicant. And so if he was a replicant, he might look at her as like, did I just kill my own kind?
Sure.
And
he'd have to have been questioning that beforehand, though.
Right, which he wasn't. But,
Well, he had the dream about the unicorn. So
that sounded like you were referencing a joke, like you were making a joke, but you weren't.
So there's a scene in the film, and it's before anything actually happens.
Yeah,
he's like laying on the piano, and he has this random vision of a unicorn running through a wooded glen. That's it.
There you go.
It looks like he's contemplating something. He's sad about something. Nothing has happened that would make you understand why, but he just looks really tormented. And then he has this vision of a unicorn, and you're like, what did I see? What was that? Because it doesn't reference it at all anymore. Done. You saw a unicorn.
The unicorn origami at the end.
Yeah. But why? So I was like sitting there and I was like, what was with the unicorn? And you're like, I have no idea. And I was like, what? Haven't you seen this? And you're like, yeah, doesn't make any sense. Okay. So I sat there and I Googled it. And they're like, yeah, we don't know either. I was like, well, why is it in here? Why is there a unicorn in here? What is this?
It adds. Okay, it adds.
So initially I thought, okay, this has something to do with probably the source material, right? Because there's a lot about animals in there. I don't know if you guys caught that. There's a lot about animals in the book. Namely sheep. But I want to point out that a unicorn has nothing to do with sheep. In fact, it has nothing to do with animals because it's not real. And so I was like, well, why would you reference a mythical animal in a book or in a film that's based on a book that references real animals because that's what they desire. Like, why would you put a mythical animal in here? Again, probably me overthinking this thing because it seems like it wasn't a lot of thought putting it in the movie either. It was just to like try and allude to something more. But
yeah, it's like I don't want to, criticize it if maybe they have a deep answer, but you have 2 references to unicorns out of the whole thing, and they're just shoehorned in, both of them. They have 0 reason for being there. They're just there. So like, then it just doesn't feel like an earned symbol. So it's like I don't even want to engage. But for the sake of humor, I will. And I think you put the unicorn in there because a unicorn, as you said, is mythical. It's not real. And so this is Deckard before he meets Rachel, or before he because I think this is after he meets Rachel, actually.
yes.
So he met Rachel, and then that awakens in him this
Right,
newfound passion.
Because she doesn't know. He does the test. She doesn't know, and he talks to Tyrell about it. He's like, she doesn't know that she's a replicant.
Yeah.
So that leads him in maybe
but she thinks she's real. She's real. And so he's like, well, maybe the unicorn thinks that it's a real horse, but it's not.
Yep.
But so it's
I am the unicorn.
She's special. She's like, she's separate from other replicants, and he hasn't quite internalized that, but it's happening. It's like starting to.
Let's go with that.
This movie, it has this reputation for being so deep and thought provoking, and some of it is, but then a lot of it is just really heavy handed. A lot of it is just there's no context, so why would we even bother trying to make heads or tails of it? So then you're just kind of left with a very slow, drag its feet kind of movie. I don't know. Like I said at the beginning, I respect it for what it is and the fact that it tried to do something very different.
Sure.
But I don't find a lot of entertainment value or a lot of depth really in either story. There's sparse moments of it. The book has a scene in the very beginning where him and his wife, he's married in the book, they have this argument, and then they have this machine. You could just press a button to make it have you experience whatever feeling you want. And so, you just do that to resolve any kind of disagreement you have with somebody. And I was like, oh, that's such an interesting concept. You could do so much with that. Does he bring it up again? Not really.
He brings it up in the very end. So in the beginning, it's interesting because his wife is dealing with essentially depression. She doesn't want to get out of bed. She doesn't want to push the machine to adjust her attitude. She just wants to wallow in her despair.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, just hit the button and you'll be fine. You won't feel this anymore.
Yeah.
She's like, I don't even want to do that. I don't want to push the button.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually he convinces her to push the button to make herself feel better.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the book, he's faced with all these things. There's allusions to the fact that maybe you could question whether he's also an android or not. All the themes of the book. He gets to the end. He brings home a fake toad, and that brings up the other scene that kind of ties off the cat scene that you were talking about earlier. He finds out that the toad that he found is not real; it's synthetic. But then he has an interaction with his wife that makes him just as excited as finding what he thought was a real toad. So it's almost like alluding to the fact that human interaction is the thing that you should be focused on. That's the important thing in life, right? Is your relationship with your wife, not a stupid sheep. But then she talks about, oh, well, you're super tired. You should go to bed.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to use the machine thing to help you sleep? And he says, yes. And he gets into bed and he goes and he just falls asleep. He doesn't use the machine. He does it unaided. So it kind of reverses the roles where he thinks he needs this thing to help him,
mm-hmm.
right? It's an unnatural introduction to his daily life. He doesn't use it and he just goes to bed. And so it's almost like, I don't know, I guess his ham-fisted way of saying no, let's find out what the actual important questions in life are and go for those rather than trying to find all these pill solutions. So those parts, they bring up interesting questions and interesting discussion points. But you're right, it does feel like you get in there and you lose the forest for the trees just because there's so many other things going on that you get distracted as to okay, what am I trying to get out of this?
Yeah.
Because I'm just dreaming about sheep. And I guess in the movie it's unicorns, but regardless, it's just it's things that don't seem. I mean, and maybe this is our fault that it doesn't seem to have too much to do with the theme. It's just cool sci-fi stuff that gets pushed in to where you think you could fit it.
Yeah, it's it has as much meaning as you want it to have.
Sure.
But anytime I'm faced with that, my answer is then it has no meaning whatsoever.
Sure.
Because if you're going to give me the choice, then it's just I won't participate.
How interpretive can you make it before it just becomes pointless?
Yeah, I could just say that it's really, about, fantasy and just start making up a weird case for he wants it's really just like a fairy tale story about a knight saving a princess and start like making up all this weird BS that no one's ever brought up about Blade Runner because why would they?
Well, that might actually be the
It should not be something that nobody can detect or that everybody could detect a different theme entirely from it. Because then it's not a theme. Then it's just you not doing the legwork of what other artists laboriously go through to try to make sure that you have that guiding hand for the theme that they want discussed. Because the whole thing is that it should provoke something in you. You should want to have a conversation about a particular topic. With Philip K. Dick, it's like, for part of it is like it's not that big a deal because a lot of the stuff he does is just like indicative of his larger body of work. Because I've read a lot of his short stories and he always has like mentions of like people wearing plastic and trash being everywhere because he had like a real fixation with like trash and plastic and he felt like our world was becoming just so much consumed with like waste and like things that are just fake and synthetic everywhere. And obviously that's reinforced so much in his writing. But I don't mind that because like that, like people wearing plastic shorts in, a story of his, it's just like they're all over the place. And so it's this larger thematic message about what the world is becoming, right? And it's just like artificial, right? But then it's like, you get like unicorns and sheep and then it's like, all right, you're losing me.
Not the same.
Well, because they don't have any connective tissue. They're just like, especially the unicorn one, that's just like a blip here and a blip there. If you cut those two bits out,
it doesn't change anything.
The movie is exactly the same.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would I even bother to entertain what the unicorn bit could mean?
The sheep, I think, has more meaning and more merit in the book. Just because it is something, he doesn't want something fake. He wants something real and is unable to get it without removing more synthetic things.
Right.
So, like, in some way that is there, but you're right. It does play, but also he's a bounty hunter, but also he might be in love with this thing, but also, and it's like, which one do we want here?
What kind of story is this?
Muddle through all this stuff, which is
why. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, which is why you get a movie like Blade Runner where they have to change all that stuff in order to make it film worthy.
Yeah, I wonder if I was about to just say just that, like, because the original screenwriter for this movie, I remember watching an interview with him, and what had happened was apparently he tried to follow the book really closely, and then it got passed to somebody else, and they rewrote everything, and it was a completely different story, and he was really upset with that because he was like, hey, I worked really hard to adapt this novel, and you're just like, oh, let's just change everything and make it so removed from the novel. But then he said he saw the movie, and he was like, okay, I see how this works much better than what I had envisioned.
Gotcha.
And that's probably because his was about a bounty hunter who then becomes this wannabe farmer. And I can't imagine.
You just hate it so much.
Can't imagine that not being interesting, engaging entertainment.
Yeah, me either.
So,
well, anything else you want to say about the movie? Or the book, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, not really.
Okay.
I did, but I forgot it. He makes me work too hard. Do you have anything you want to say?
Nope. I think for all its hype, really wasn't worth it for me. But I'm glad I watched it. I like Ridley Scott for what it's worth.
Yeah.
He's such an odd director, and this did nothing to change that opinion about him.
Yeah, he can just be very hit and miss. That is something that we were both touching on when we were watching this, is that this movie feels like everything is so intentional, and he's like this, looking through that camera lens and then just nitpicking everything in it. Like, the fact that the androids have this like cool, like reddish glossy shine to their eyes. It looked awesome. And apparently they did some novel trick to make that happen just for the replicants.
Logically, it makes no sense, but the whole point is that you can't tell the difference between the androids and the humans. So giving a visual cue just ruins that altogether. But whatever.
I suppose that's true. I assumed that it was just like I assumed it was something like reflecting in the environment, in
Okay.
world. I know that's not how they shot it, but like, or that's not the justification outside. But in world, it's like a reflected, and maybe I'm not going to defend it anymore. I haven't argued. I don't think it's that good. I'm going to let it
He
go.
just gave up. I'm just over it.
I can't defend him. That's the whole thing. It's like it's so intentional, and then it's like, here's a unicorn. Okay, the unicorn's gone. Never mind that. It's like,
From what I was
what?
reading, it didn't seem like that was a him decision, but it also didn't seem like he did anything to change it. So both are weird. Weird that he didn't put it in the movie, but he also didn't say not to put it in the movie.
Yeah, I have to say, if this was Steven Spielberg, he would have cut it out.
Yeah.
Or he would have included it to make sure, and like more so.
Well, he would have made it intentional, yes.
Yeah, because why wouldn't you? But Scott is like that. He'll just be like, "Oh, I guess that's fine." It's like,
why not?
So, like, why is that fine? This other shot took us like 5 weeks to prepare.
Where'd you get the unicorn? That's cool. Yeah, put it in. It's like the fuck kind of.
Hi, director.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Okay, let's call it there. Thank you for watching. So you made it to the end of the video. If you liked it, please consider subscribing and leave us a comment. We'd love to hear what you thought.